everyone, welcome back to today's lesson, Post-Production, Presentation, and Project Delivery. I'm Jodi Jones, a New York City fashion photographer and creative director with over 20 years experience working with brands on their marketing strategies. Today, we'll teach you how to add value and professionalism to your post-production process and portfolio reviews with clients remotely. As every photographer knows, the best shoot can be derailed by an underwhelming editing review session. You and your talent can have vastly different opinions on the final product. This much is unavoidable. But don't let this ruin all the hard work you've put in so far to make this happen. You've already overcome the logistical challenges of a remote photography shoot. So what can we do to make the post-production presentation and project delivery process smoother, productive, and hopefully much faster? Step 1, backup. Backup, backup, backup. Then backup again. We can't stress this enough. Even if you use the same saving and transferring method from SD card to a laptop 1,000 times, all it takes is for that one time for technology not to play nice or for the storage to fail and ruin a week or months of planning. There's nothing more embarrassing or frustrating than having to reshoot a project again from scratch, or retouch 10 to 1,000 images again, or do another edit because of a corrupt database file. During the remote shoot, it may be helpful to sync the photos to the cloud as they are being taken from the location. Close App has the auto Dropbox syncing, but you should also have the client WeTransfer you all the files that they have remotely. Having a pro account helps, especially if files are too big. Also, this means you can start working on the post-production process straight away, without having to wait for the loaded SD card or hard drive to be delivered back to you if you happen to use a DSLR remote. Backing up is very important, even if you shot in person. Just one mistake, dropped hard drive, accidental delete, and goodbye. Canon cameras support automatic backup to Google Photos, taking the hassle out of manually backing up. You'll need a Google or Gmail account and set up the login within the camera. But you can back up to another hard drive for speed, use Backblaze, Google Drive file system, Amazon Drive, etc. Cloud storage is surprisingly cheap. All of these app services have a web drag and drop function, which makes backup pretty simple. Step 2, initial edit. We're going to assume that if you're in the photography game, that you're probably already quite adept at the editing process. So in this step, we're going to focus on proofing tips specific to remote shooting. After importing into Capture One, Lightroom, or any other editing tool of your choice, perform your initial edit, cutting out any of the obvious unstable shots. Remove any blinks, blurred features, or shots that don't display your client in the best light. Make a point of removing any photos that have awkward poses or that could make the model a bit self-conscious. At the end of your first review, you should have edited at least 2/3 of your available shots and be familiar with what you have. This step is optional, and it depends on whether you want to consult with your client or the talent on one or more occasions. This step can be used as a training exercise with photographers and editors, either on your team or on the client side. If you decide to do an initial consult, it can be useful to perform what is called a collaborative editing session. Schedule a Zoom call and share your screen content during the call so you can both be on the same page. Host a viewing session where you can both review select photos that made it through your initial edits. If you flagged photos as your favorites during your initial review, you might not want to let the client be influenced by your choices. Instead, simply have the client let you know anytime she or he likes an image. Models and clients often have preferences on angles and poses and may see imperfections that you might have overlooked. Then you can send your selections along with their selections back to them to narrow down further. Let me give you an example. From this final collaborative editing step, you might have, say, 40 to 50 photos if it's a special project. If you're shooting e-commerce fashion shoots, maybe you'll have 5 to 10 photos per clothing item and 2 to 15 photos for a standard advertising brief. From here, you can start to move into the post-production phase. If the client needs to revisit the edit, then you can always make them a web gallery with image names displayed for easy reference. Lightroom does it best, but you can just export the small files and send via WeTransfer also. Step 4, post-production. The first major image manipulation occurs at this step. They might seem like minor changes, but post-production can give a lot of aesthetic boost to your images. Basic corrections are done to the images, and they include exposure, contrast, saturation, sharpness, color temperature, highlights, and shadows. Try to do as much in your favorite programs such as Lightroom or Capture One editing apps, and leave Photoshop for the detailed work. My favorite program is Capture One. The editing application helps you see the project from a big picture perspective with all the files presented together. These minor focus tweaks make all the difference later. Step 5, private viewing session. As we mentioned before, remote viewing sessions can be done in 1, 2, or more parts, depending on the amount of revisions you have allowed for during the project. In preparation, you would have created an online photo gallery keynote or PDF with all the retouched photos selected in Step 3. Now, normally the viewing session would be done in person, perhaps at your photo studio. While remote sessions have risen in popularity even before COVID-19, this process will be your mainstay in a world where in-person meetings are not always convenient. Perhaps you may want to connect via Zoom. You can share screen content to view the online galleries you have made, or let the client view your Photoshop, Lightroom, or Capture One Pro app. Just like in a normal face-to-face viewing session, you would walk the client or talent through choosing the best photographs, as opposed to just letting them pick. If the project tells a story, like an engagement or series of family portraits, make sure you explain the reason behind your preference for certain sequences. This is when a keynote can be good to guide the conversation. It is also in the private viewing step that you have the opportunity to upsell. Use the opportunity to offer options and advice on how they'd like the final product, whether it's retouching a new shoot idea or prints or something like this, where they can have a book of the shoot. Step 6, final retouching. This final editing stage happens after the clients have confirmed their selected pictures. It might not seem like it, but the final retouch is the most labor-intensive phase of all of it. Great care and a keen eye for detail is crucial here. This should be applied, but you're going to need professional software. Even while today's photo apps can do quite a bit in this respect, nothing beats the painstaking work done with professional Photoshop retouching, especially if your work is to be blown up to larger portions. The important takeaway from this stage, laser focus. Take your time to go through every single image and craft them to the client's satisfaction. This stage is where blemishes and stray hairs are removed, and with various retouching techniques like frequency separation, clone stamping, dodge and burn, color toning, and contrasting, the pictures are digitally edited to generally make everyone look better. Fix the foreground, clean the floor, fix the background paper if you've used it, remove any equipment, C-stand, fix the product, etc. While touching is important, never go overboard with Photoshop editing. Photos should be an improvement on how the talent looks in real life, but never alter to the point they look fake. The end result, if done well, should be enough to get that wow whisper under the breath. Step 7, product delivery and quality control. While many photographers believe that the heavy lifting is done after retouching and editing, this is just not the case. The photographer should conduct an extensive quality assessment on the images to ensure the signature quality standard of the studio is upheld. Regardless of how much time spent, walk away from it, get fresh eyes, and scrutinize every picture to ensure colors are corrected and the product themselves are in great condition and free from imperfections. Try to use a professional online gallery to enhance your delivery. This will elevate your delivery, and these platforms have a rich set of customizable options and support features. If your delivery is a print one, it's just as important to ensure quality and accuracy before presenting it to the client. You shouldn't skimp when it comes to the final product. This is what the client will remember. The best photo shoot can become undone with a rushed, lazy final delivery. Step 8, follow-up. The final step of a remote photo shoot session is one of the most overlooked, but one of the most important, especially if you want repeat business. A short, polite follow-up email, a letter, a gift, or a call can do wonders for your business profile. It demonstrates professionalism, initiative, and leaves your client or talent with a really good impression. Your brand identity will also be at the forefront of their mind, especially if they are looking for a photographer for future projects. So the final step of remote shoot, post-production and project delivery. Let's recap. Remote private viewing sessions are an ideal way to promote your professionalism and adaptability in the wake of challenging global conditions. Back up all images as soon as practically possible. Edit images both on your own and in a collaborative session to agree on a short list of pictures. Retouching and post-production is one of the only processes that remains the same in a remote shoot, but never neglect its importance. During the private viewing, provide guidance and advice on preferred images, especially if the project involves a defined narrative. Upsell to include delivery mediums, such as new projects, retouching, catalogs, videos, print, books, etc. Even after the product presentation is done, an intensive quality control process should be undertaken before delivering. Follow-up. Follow up after product delivery to leave a really good impression and invite future collaborations for future projects. For today's homework, I want you to prepare a remote viewing presentation agenda. Design the order of the photos based on the outcomes you expect. Indicate points in your plan to suggest upsells, such as, this would really be a great retail banner, or we could do a video shoot next. Have a dialogue or comment prepared for each photo to be ready for objections, questions, or things that they might want to point out. Draft follow-up emails and make sure they are personalized. Be sure to compliment the talent or the client for their professionalism and ability. Thanks for tuning in to us here at Jodi Jones Studio. We hope that today's lesson has really got you inspired to level up your client interaction experience with a professional post-production session. Well, that's all from us here at Jodi Jones Studio. We'll see you next time.